One of the many heroes in attendance here today on the 75th anniversary is 92-year-old Jerry Yellin. Yellin was a World War II fighter pilot, and he enlisted 2 months after the attack on his 18th birthday.
Because I killed people. I killed Japanese people. I shot down airplanes. I strafed people on the ground, boats on the ground, railroad stations, hospitals, buildings. I was doing my job, killing my enemy, killing people I hated. I didn't know they were people.
That hatred started 75 years ago when Jerry Yellin was just 17 years old.
At 12:30 in the morning, 12:30 in the afternoon in Newark, New Jersey, on the corner of Maple Avenue and Grumman Avenue, I was in a candy store listening to the attack on Pearl Harbor live by the Japanese. And I had never met a Japanese man. I'd never seen a Japanese person. But I hated the Japanese for what they did.
Yellin decided then he was going to be a fighter pilot. During the war, he flew P-40, P-47, and P-51 combat missions, including Iwo Jima.
And on April 7, 1945, I was a member of the 78th Fighter Squadron. 16 of us escorted B-29s over Japan. The B-29s made a big square of fire over Tokyo, a square of fire. And 140, 150 B-29s dropped their bombs into that square of fire, and little fires became big fires, and the smoke and the debris came up to 15 or 18,000 feet.
On August 14, 1945, Yellin flew the final combat mission of World War II, an attack on Japanese airfields near Tokyo. After the war ended, Yellin suffered from PTSD for decades and had a hard time adjusting. Then,
March 5th, 1988, my youngest son in Mishima, Japan, married the daughter of a kamikaze pilot.
It's the moment that Yellin says took him, quote, from hatred to love. But before that would happen, there was obvious reservation. Yellin's son met with his future father-in-law, Taro Yamakawa, to answer a number of questions, in particular what Yellin did during World War II. After listening, Yamakawa said he would allow the wedding and told his wife,
any man that can fly a P-51 against the Japanese and live must be a brave man, and I want the blood of that man to flow through the veins of our grandchildren.
They have 3 grandchildren. And before Yamakawa died, he and Yellin came to realize they shared similar views on religion, education, and family.
It taught me about humanity, that we are not what we believe. We're not Buddhists or Jews. We're not Christians or Muslims. We're not Americans and Japanese. We're all exactly the same as human beings. And it's worth noting that until we come to that conclusion and we kill people for what we believe, that's evil, complete evil.
Now Yellin travels the world, sharing his story, warning of the dangers of nuclear war, and hoping to help veterans with PTSD. 75 years after it started, Yellin's hatred is long gone, and the strange twist that healed him still seems to astound him.
I saw mounds and mounds and mounds of dead Japanese bodies being pushed in the mass grave. 21,000 died. The smell of death never left me. I can smell it today, what I smelled on Iwo Jima 71 years ago. And they weren't human then, but now they're my family. How does that happen?
I don't think there's any answer for that question.
That's an incredible story.
Yeah.
What an eloquent man, and sharing such an important message around the world. Yeah.
He said he would urge all Americans to do a couple of things. First of all, today, look up President Roosevelt's For Freedom speech. He says that was actually issued to Congress in January of 1941, but he said it still rings true today. And he said, in your lifetime, if you can, visit Hiroshima, Japan, and see the devastation of nuclear war. He said it'll forever change your views.
And we talk about reconciliation, the power of that. Of course, President Obama being the first U.S. sitting president to actually go to Japan to visit Hiroshima. Now we're going to have the opportunity for Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to come here, and he and President Obama together will meet at the USS Arizona. Couldn't be here today for the 75th anniversary, but will be here later this month. And it speaks to that commitment to bridging, any divide that may exist.
That's right. They'll be here the 26th and the 27th.
Right.
And between Japan and the U.S., it is the biggest turnaround of adversaries into close friends probably in the history of the world.
Right.
thousands watching, of course, here live. There are millions around the world that will be participating by viewing the commemoration ceremonies that will begin here in about an hour. The weather could not be better. It is spectacular here this morning. Let's just show you a couple of live shots. This taken from the bow of the Mighty Mo, looking out over the Arizona Memorial. And the sunrise that we experienced just a few minutes ago was colorful and just so wonderful. Yes, a very quiet and beautiful morning as people gather to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the Pearl Harbor attack.
And today, we will pay tribute to those members of the greatest generation who paved the way here in Pearl Harbor for current and future generations throughout the world. Will the guests please rise as able for the arrival of the official party, United States Pacific Command arriving. Mr. Stratton will now return the salute to USS Halsey.
At that dawn's early light, they ran to battle stations and to the sound of the guns as they moved boldly to begin the defense of our country. So please help me welcome again these patriots with a grateful nation's round of applause.
Almighty and eternal God, on this day of infamy, we ask that you would bless the memory of the heroes who distinguished themselves that fateful morning and in the days and years that followed. Though each passing year attempts to erase the impact of the countless sacrifices, guard us from ever neglecting the cost so many paid to preserve our freedoms and defend our liberty. Inspired
A day to pay tribute. A day to remember.
75 years ago, they were about to conduct morning colors when they were surprised to hear the sounds of real bombs bursting in air.
A day to honor those killed.
At that dawn's early light, they ran to battle stations and to the sound of the guns.
And those who survived.
You felt the shock, endured the grief.
75 years after the attack on Pearl Harbor, military leaders,
we salute your service and your sacrifice.
Veterans and civilians surrounded the waters that entomb the dead to share their stories and inspire future generations.
As the legacy and lessons of Pearl Harbor are passed to our children and our children's children.
To never forget the day when warplanes filled the skies above Oahu, when bombs rained on the harbor.
The sacrifices made by those who served here on December 7th, 1941.
The day that lives in infamy. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our special edition of Hawaii News Now at 6. Today, we mark the 75th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. Ke'ahi Tucker and Stephanie Lum are at Ford Island tonight and join us with all of today's remembrance events. Hi, guys.
Good evening, Lynn. We are in front of the memorial where 4 of the 5 living survivors of the USS Arizona returned 75 years after they escaped their burning ship.
They were among several dozen Pearl Harbor survivors and about 300 World War II veterans who traveled here from across the country to be here this week to mark this solemn anniversary.
We have live team coverage from Waikiki to Pearl Harbor. We'll be hearing from visitors and survivors.
We'll also take you live to an interment ceremony granting a sailor his final wish. We start tonight with Jim Mendoza and today's commemoration. Survivors of that terrible day 75 years ago uttered the same words as present-day sailors. December 7th is all about honoring those who died at Pearl Harbor.
On this day of infamy, we ask that you would bless the memory of the heroes who distinguished themselves that fateful morning and in the days and years that followed.
As the yearly commemorations add up, they also subtract. Survivors' ranks are thinning.
It's the passing of the World War II generation, as if you and I and all your audience is watching a parade, and that parade is about to end.
USS Arizona sailor Donald Stratton suffered burns to 75% of his body.
I was medically discharged. I was out for a year. I re-enlisted again, went back through boot camp in Farragut, and they put me on a destroyer, and I made 5 more invasions.
Hundreds of World War II veterans attended the 75th commemoration.
I am mainly concerned with my honor for the men aboard the ship that died, the Arizona. That's my main concern, that honor go to them.
Thousands of people packed into Kilo Pealr.
We're going to have 19-year-old sailors in the audience today with survivors that are in their 90s. What a great chance to learn from them and be inspired in their service.
I told them, thank you for your service. Thank you for paving the way for us. Thank you for fighting for the people that couldn't, and just carrying their pride every day of what they did.
Stratton is 94. From his generation to this generation, he offers these words.
We're in trouble with ISIS right now like we were with Japan, and we got to We can't let this happen again.
Those who survived Pearl Harbor also left us a warning. Remember Pearl Harbor. Keep America alert.
Only 5 USS Arizona shipmates who lived through the sinking of their battleship are still with us. Today was their day. Jim Mendoza, Hawaii News Now.
And today's events also included a ceremony to mark the sinking of the USS Oklahoma. It was hit by as many as 12 torpedoes and capsized within 14 minutes. 429 crew members were killed.
At the Pearl Harbor Visitor Center today, a large mural was on display, including pictures of most of the service members who lost their lives on December 7th, 1941. A visitor found a picture of her uncle, who was among the 2,400 service members and civilians killed that day. The mural was taken to the Pearl Harbor Memorial Parade, now underway in Waikiki.
And today was part of a trip of a lifetime for many families who traveled far just to be here for this historic event.
Chelsea Davis continues our team coverage.
An emotional day for family members of those veterans as thousands from all over the world gathered here today. Some have been planning for this once-in-a-lifetime trip for more than a decade. For many, this historic trip to Hawaii was a pilgrimage to honor loved ones, both those who survived the attack and those who didn't.
It was fantastic, very moving. My uncle was on the USS Nevada. That's why I'm wearing his hat, and his name is on the hat.
Lee Woods came from Texas, Karen Flem from Minnesota.
I thought it was a beautiful, very emotional service. I thought that they did a wonderful job of coordinating. It was humbling to see all of the veterans. Totally enjoyable.
Some planned for this trip for more than 10 years, like the Miranda family. 19 of them flew in from California, South Carolina, even France, to honor Vic Miranda, a father, uncle, grandfather, great-grandfather, and great-great-grandfather who died just last year.
I keep the words that he wrote to us all dear at heart. You know, remember Pearl Harbor, keep America alert. That was his saying. That's what he told us, and that it's just something that I wake up and I think about every day and walk around with me. 27 members of the Echo family flew in from Texas for the special event. Their family patriarch, Bill, was stationed at Pearl Harbor the day of the attack.
On the morning of December the 7th, he was walking across the bow of his ship to go to breakfast, and he heard an airplane, and he looked up, and he noticed that it had a orange sun spot on the tail. And he said, "Oh my gosh, that's Japanese." And he saw one of the first bombs being dropped.
Echo, who was aboard the USS New Orleans, died 4 years ago. His family says they're honored to represent him.
I'm in awe at the number of people that are here to honor this event. So glad that my family came in the memory of my grandfather. I know my grandparents are looking down, they're very proud.
Chelsea Davis, Hawaii News Now.
Well, there have been a great many events this week commemorating the attacks. Today, a solemn ceremony at the USS Arizona Memorial reunited 2 sailors with their shipmates.
Our Ben Gutierrez joined us live from the Pearl Harbor Visitor Center with that story. Ben.
Kahi Steph, 75 years ago today, 1,177 sailors and Marines lost their lives aboard the USS Arizona in the attack on Pearl Harbor. Today, 2 sailors who managed to survive that attack were reunited with their shipmates on the USS Arizona. John Anderson and Clarendon Hetrick were honored in solemn ceremonies aboard the Arizona Memorial. While thousands attended this morning's commemoration, only family members, invited guests, and dignitaries witnessed the interment in person. The urns carrying Anderson's and Hetrick's ashes were taken by Navy divers to their final resting place in gun turret 4 of the sunken Arizona. They joined 36 other attack survivors who have been interred aboard the ship through the years. And in Anderson's case, he's reunited with his twin brother Jake, who died in the attack 75 years ago today. Now, this is the first and likely the only double interment ceremony that will be held aboard the USS Arizona. There are only 5 remaining Arizona survivors, as you've heard, and that means that today's ceremony may be among the last of its kind. Reporting live from the Pearl Harbor Visitor Center, Ben Gutierrez, Hawaii News Now.
Thank you, Ben. President Obama released a statement today thanking veterans and survivors of Pearl Harbor for their courage and sacrifice that inspires all of us. Later this month, he will visit Pearl Harbor, and for the first time ever, the Prime Minister of Japan will join him to pay tribute.
President-elect Donald Trump also released a statement today honoring the heroes who, quote, selflessly gave their lives. He echoed President Franklin Roosevelt, calling December 7th a date that will forever live in infamy.